JD Vance is now politically radioactive, and it didn't happen by accident. When the Vice President of the United States is forced to flee the country just to face yet another humiliating rejection, that single image says everything.
JD Vance, shame on you! JD Vance, shame on you! JD Vance, shame on you!
Go back to America and sort your own country out. Leave us alone.
Oh my God. Trying to get away from Vance and Trump.
If he come in a normal car, I don't reckon anyone would recognise him.
This wasn't bad timing. This wasn't coincidence. This was pure, unavoidable consequence. In a Trump presidency soaked in corruption, intimidation, and the slow-motion collapse of public trust, JD Vance's isolation wasn't an emotional outburst. It was mathematically inevitable. He now stands completely exposed, rejected by loud, unrelenting protesters who refuse to be silenced, and by everyday working Americans who simply refuse to pretend he deserves their respect. We'll walk through exactly how this spectacular rejection unfolded, because collapses like this are never random. But first, don't just watch. Share this. Accountability dies in silence. And here's the part that should terrify the White House. This backlash is no longer just coming from liberals or progressives. Republicans are turning on JD Vance too, especially after his calculated backroom maneuvering on the single issue that keeps Donald Trump up at night.
Oops, Donald. You thought you sent JD Vance to talk to Rupert Murdoch about stopping the Epstein story. Well, that didn't work. But here's what you should really be worried about, Donald. Something worth sitting with. Because this isn't how loyal operatives behave. What if JD Vance cuts a deal with Rupert? Maybe JD Vance and Rupert figured out the succession, who comes after you, and maybe they've decided they're done waiting. Maybe they talked about timing, about when the 25th Amendment stops being hypothetical. You should have sent Junior, or someone you could actually trust, because you know JD Vance will tell anyone whatever it takes to get what he wants. And Rupert, he doesn't just listen. Well, Rupert moves. And if JD Vance and Rupert get their way, Donald, you don't just lose control. You lose everything.
JD Vance has no moral core, no governing philosophy, no principles that anchor him to anything larger than himself. There is nothing substantive there. What drives him is power purely for its own sake. Advancing a cause doesn't interest him. Advancing JD Vance does. So would anyone really be surprised if he's been quietly stabbing Donald Trump in the back again and again while circling the Epstein issue? Of course not. That's not betrayal.
I was wrong about Donald Trump. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
That's strategy. He's been careful, keeping just enough distance to preserve plausible deniability because he wants this issue available later. Let's be honest, he wants to run on it again in 2028. He wants to keep the conspiracy crowd activated, agitated, loyal. He needs them. That's the coalition he's courting, because without it, he has nothing.
If I served under Joe Biden, I'd probably be worried every minute of every day that he was going to croak and that I'd have to become president.
But here's the problem for JD Vance. That kind of spineless, transactional pursuit of power leaves you standing alone. Nobody trusts you. Nobody respects you. And when no one actually likes you, even your ambition becomes a liability. And that's especially true when real leaders, people with actual spines, are willing to call you out. Before we get to the protesters and the workers who did exactly that, let's start with one of them now, Gavin Newsom.
I don't need to belabor this, except I want to level set. People are scared. People are fearful. You had a United States Senator that was thrown down to the ground in a federal building. Alex Padilla. JD Vance's name is Alex Padilla, not Jose Padilla. That's the Vice President of the United States. It's another museum, not so far away from us, talks about those 53 days. Some of you know what I'm referring to. Wake up, America. This is a serious moment. Wake up to what's going on. Wake up to the fear, the anxiety. Wake up to what's happening, not just here in Los Angeles, where we saw our streets militarized. We saw our due process rights thrown out the window. You heard the word disappeared?
JD Vance knows exactly what he is, and that's what makes this so desperate. That's why he keeps trying to act tough, trying to sound dangerous, trying to impress Donald Trump. And it never works, because none of it is real. He wants to be macho. He wants to be an everyman, but he's completely out of touch. He abandoned his hometown, abandoned the Midwest, and ran straight to Silicon Valley for Peter Thiel's money and Palantir Technologies checks. Whatever credibility he once claimed ended right there. What's left is a hollow man chasing power for its own sake. No roots, no backbone, no authenticity, and people see it instantly. That's why even on vacation, he wasn't welcomed, he wasn't ignored, he was rejected. And that brings us to what happened next. Staff mutiny forces British pub to turn away U.S. Vice President JD Vance. According to reports, Vance attempted to dine at a restaurant in the English countryside just weeks after the same venue hosted Vice President Kamala Harris. Instead, a staff mutiny forced management to reject his booking. The incident reportedly took place at The Bull, an early 16th century countryside pub that holds a Michelin Bib Gourmand, an award recognizing restaurants that offer high-quality food at moderate prices. Staff members told management they would refuse to show up for work if Vance's reservation was honored, prompting the pub to turn him away, according to the Popular Information newsletter. The rejection was all the more striking given the venue's recent history. Just weeks earlier, Kamala Harris, then a former vice president and presidential hopeful, dined at the same pub as part of a pre-wedding celebration for Eve Jobs, the daughter of Steve Jobs. Jobs married British Olympic equestrian Harry Charleses in the Cotswolds, a rural region of southwest England, in late July. It's been the talk of the village. It's the most exciting thing that's happened here for a long time, a staff member told the Daily Beast by phone, declining to comment further on Vance's reported rejection. When pressed, the staff member referred inquiries to the pub's owner, Public House Group, which has been contacted for comment. Representatives for Vance have also been contacted. No response has been provided. The episode coincided with a Dance Against Vance's protest in the area, where demonstrators displayed placards labeling him a war criminal and circulated a meme depicting a bald, baby-faced JD Vance. Around the world, JD Vance isn't merely dismissed, he has become an international punchline, the kind of figure foreign leaders whisper about with a mix of disbelief and quiet amusement. And if you're feeling that growing exhaustion, that familiar secondhand embarrassment watching someone so ill-equipped wield this kind of power, then allow yourself one moment of cold, clarifying comfort. This embarrassment is not confined to our borders. It is global. JD Vance is widely viewed with skepticism and disdain for a very specific reason because when the moment of truth arrives, he consistently folds. He postures with sharp rhetoric and tough talk, but the instant real pressure is applied, the substance simply evaporates. There is no steel in the spine, no depth of conviction, just carefully rehearsed positioning that collapses under scrutiny. That contrast is becoming impossible for Americans to ignore. Genuine leadership doesn't whine about its circumstances. It doesn't retreat or seek shelter in excuses. It stands its ground and meets the challenge head-on. That's precisely what we're seeing from governors like Gavin Newsom, a deliberate, unflinching pushback against calculated attempts to undermine the integrity of our elections and rewrite the rules after the fact in ways that serve narrow interests rather than democratic principles. It's a reminder that strength in public life is measured not by volume or spectacle, but by consistency and courage under fire. And that's exactly why it's worth paying close attention to what Governor Gavin Newsom has to say in the coming days.
Giving the power to the people. This will be the first redistricting that's ever done that. That's the difference. We tried to raise the standards, and these guys are not playing by any set of rules. So this time requires us to act anew, not just think anew. And so I'm grateful to all of the remarkable leaders that have stepped up this unifying effort here in the state of California. And we'll be asking for the people on November 4th, a special election coinciding with a lot of local municipal elections, to provide a temporary pathway for congressional maps. We will affirm our commitment to the state independent redistricting after the 2030 census, but we're asking the voters for their consent to do midterm redistricting in 2026, 2028, and 2030 for the congressional maps, to respond to what's happening in Texas, to respond what Trump is trying to excite. And we'll do so in a way that also affirms our desire as a state to level the playing field all across the United States. We believe in a national independent redistricting framework. And we believe that's the right goal and the right thing to pursue. And I will just state for the fact, Zoe Lofgren, who runs our California delegation, she authored the bill. Democrats unanimously supported that National Independent Redistricting Commission. Republicans were nowhere to be found. They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides, because they know what Donald Trump knows. He's going to lose the midterms. He knows de facto his presidency ends in 17 months when Speaker Jeffries is back in office. He knows it. Why else would you try to rig the system? Why else would you make the phone call? He's a failed president. Who else sends ICE same time having a conversation like this? Someone who's weak. Someone who's broken. Someone whose weakness is masquerading his strength.
That's what he does.
The most unpopular president in modern history. An economy that's collapsing all around him. You saw the new wholesale prices going up almost a full percentage point today. Inflation is going up. Job creation is going down. He's trying to rewrite history, Smithsonian, censoring historical facts. And in the spirit of what Adam Schiff said, he's trying to put America in reverse on voting rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights, on women's rights. He wants to bring us back to a pre-1960s world. That's what this is all about. It's about power, and I want to end on this. And we are about to give power back to the people. You have, on November 4th in California, you have the power to stand up to Trump. You have the power to declare that you support a system that is not rigged. You have the power on November 4th to stand up for people that are being bullied. You have the power to stand up for people that are being intimidated. You have the power to stand up to the rule of law. We're giving the people of this state the power to save democracy, not just in California, but all across the United States of America. I hope we are waking up to this reality. Wake up, America. Wake up to what Donald Trump is doing. Wake up to his assaults. Wake up to the assault on institutions and knowledge and history. Wake up to his war on science and public health. In his war against the American people. This is a guy who lays claim to want to get a Nobel Prize, sitting there and bending his knee to Mr. Putin. You have the power to straighten this out. And so I want to again just thank everybody for exercising not just their formal authority, yes, that's what we're doing, but also sharing their moral authority at this moment. I want to thank everybody for being here today, for being here tomorrow, and most importantly, we're counting on all of you on November 4th to be there for each other to win this election and stand up for our democracy. Thank you all very, very much.
This is the kind of fight that cuts through the noise and reveals what real institutional courage looks like. Not manufactured chaos, not lawlessness, but the steady, unflinching willingness to stop pretending that broken norms still command automatic respect simply because they once did. The right will undoubtedly claim that Gavin Newsom is defying the will of the voters. That charge doesn't hold. What Gavin Newsom is doing stands in sharp contrast to the kind of maneuvers we've seen from governors like Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis' actions often conducted behind closed doors, reshaping rules in ways that insulate power rather than test it in the open. Gavin Newsom is taking the fight straight to the people. He is putting the question directly before California voters, seeking their explicit approval to push back against the Trump administration's agenda through transparent, legal channels. This isn't politicians deciding in secret. This will be decided by voters themselves. That is democracy, stripped to its essential form, raw, accountable, and yes, deeply unsettling to those who prefer control without contest. Now comes the difficult, unglamorous work that actually determines outcomes: organization, persistent education, and reaching people before narratives harden into accepted truth. That requires real effort, coordination, and, inevitably, resources. California's stand matters not just for one state, but because it tests whether deliberate resistance within the constitutional framework can still shape the national direction. Stopping overreach matters wherever it originates. If this fight resonates with you as something worth defending, then consider supporting it in whatever way fits your capacity. Subscribe for deeper reporting and analysis. Engage thoughtfully with the ideas presented here. Make your voice part of the visible record. If these observations feel uncomfortably accurate, that discomfort is often the first signal that something important is at stake. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Civil, substantive conversation is how clarity emerges. Because this, ultimately, is what measured, determined pushback actually looks like in practice. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Take a moment to breathe, reconnect with what grounds you, and enjoy the small, steady pleasures of these spring days. We'll pick this up refreshed on the other side.